Hi, and welcome to The Bright Balloon, a podcast where I'm sharing bright ideas for your balloon business. My name is Sarah Meyer, and I'm a balloon business owner like you, and I love the creative side of what I do, but I really love the business side, which seems to be the part where most people struggle. So I'm here to help. Each week, I'm bringing you an episode full of bite-sized tips you can use to make improvements in your business. I want you to make more money, eliminate stress, and learn along with me as we grow our creative businesses together. Welcome to The Bright Balloon, presented by 17 Hats. Hello and welcome to another episode. Today, I am sharing my rebooking workflow and process. This has been the thing that I've implemented in the last year that has made me more money than anything else. More money than advertising, marketing, networking, updating my website. This one simple action trumps it all. And I'm going to share in great detail exactly what my follow-up sequence is so that I am now for the first time getting more repeat customers than I've ever had in my life. So stay tuned. We are going to get into all things rebooking and workflows right after we head over to the UGlue hotline for some great advice that sticks. Welcome to the UGlue hotline, where we discuss great advice that sticks. Brought to you by Pro Tapes. If you have a question or some great advice to share, click the link in the show notes to call in and leave a voicemail.
Hi, my name is Julie, and I'm the owner of Little Finch Party in Buffalo, New York. I'm calling today with a tip and a question. But before I do that, I have to thank you so much, Sarah, for being such a knowledge source for all of us beginning balloon businesses out there. I appreciate you, and I know people across the nation, probably internationally, appreciate you too. So that's number one. Number two is you're awesome. Okay, on to the tip. This is something that should go without saying, but it's something that burns me every time. Please, friends, remember to bring your business cards with you, because invariably people will ask you for them. And it's really much better for you to hand them a stack of business cards and say, here you go. Thank you so much for spreading the word, and saying, I'm sorry, I don't have any. So bring your business cards. The question I have is in relationship to when you're growing your growing business and your decision to make, to bring on employees. The big question. W-9? Do you do a 1099 or do you do a W-2 rather? So 1099 or W-2, which is the best way to go? Or does it depend on your model? It seems to me there could be an entire broadcast on this, but that would be the question I would love to get your insight on. Thanks. Have a great day.
Hey, Julie, thank you so much for those really, really kind words, that great tip, and a really good question. I agree. We also need to do an episode about this, and I will start working on that. When it comes to employees or contractors, this is kind of a gray area and kind of a point of contention depending on who you ask. So definitely bringing on people as 1099 seems to be easier, something that you can just kind of do overnight, right? You're paying them, they're taking care of their own taxes. It's easier in the sense that there's less paperwork. An actual employee, a W-2 employee, is going to require payroll, potentially just a lot more paperwork and making sure that you're doing things correctly, because then you are going to be paying in some of their taxes. And I think that's the reason that people don't go that direction. In terms of which one is correct, I am not an expert, but my understanding, a contractor should really be someone who controls their own schedule, supplies their own materials, and kind of could do the same thing for other people. So a really solid example of a contractor is like a cleaning person, someone who comes in, cleans your shop. They're coming when they're available. They're kind of telling you when they're going to be there. And they could, in theory, then go and do that for a bunch of other people. An employee, obviously, would be someone who installs balloons for you. They are driving your van. They are coming to your place of business. You are setting their schedule and their pay and determining all of that. I think the grayest area is one of the things where we all are, and that is an inflator. Some people are very adamant that is an employee. They are inflating your balloons the way you want them to using your equipment. However, the other extreme is this person could also be inflating other people's balloons. They could be running their own business. They are setting their own time and kind of coming as they wish and doing whatever they want. And if they don't finish the job, they leave. So I think that's kind of the grayest area. But in general, I think contractors, if you have no help, figure out what type of contractors you could hire, because those are people you could get in your door tomorrow and just start paying them, and they keep track of the money, right? Employees, while you don't have to be super intimidated by them, I definitely rely on my bookkeepers and tax preparers. So I use Fiore Tax Services, and they have helped me kind of cross some of those bridges. Because I get scared to make those moves on my own. So it's nice to have someone much smarter than I am kind of help me through that process. So I am to the point where I'm putting people on payroll and starting to insure certain people for my vehicle, and they're turning much more into employees. But it is a gray area. I don't think one is better than the other. I think it certainly depends on your model. People like a virtual assistant, my podcast editor, someone to edit social media, someone to manage social media. Those are all very, very much contractor roles that you can find and hire today, and they worry about their own taxes. They basically can run their own businesses. So I hope that gives some clarity. Again, I am not an expert, and I think you've absolutely hit on an issue that we need to do an episode about. So stay tuned. I will have more coming soon, but thank you so much for calling in. ProTapes is a leading manufacturer of specialty tape products like ProGaff, Pro Artist Tape, and our favorite balloon tape, U-Glue, which helps you create amazing balloon arrangements and decorations in less time. You can save 5% on U-Glue when you buy directly from Having a Party using code BRIGHT at checkout. All right, welcome back. So this one might feel overwhelming, but I love episodes of podcasts that tell me exactly what to do. So I'm going to lay it out for you how I actually have implemented a rebooking workflow in my balloon business. Now, for the last 7 years, I have had a pretty steady workflow that's been working for me. And when I say workflow, I mean my process. Someone reaches out to me and wants balloons, and I have a pretty consistent workflow that leads them through that process. Now, I implement all of this using 17 Hats. They are our sponsor of this podcast. They have sent me to Balloon Boss Summit for the last 2 or 3 years. They're a company that I love and adore, but this is not a commercial for them. This is how I actually use this software to run my business and make more money. Now, if you don't have 17 Hats, you can do these things in kind of like a workaround way, or if you use a different CRM, it probably can handle this. But I am going to talk through how I do it in 17 Hats so that those of you that do use it, because I know there's a lot of you, you'll know exactly what to click and how to actually make this run for you automatically. So don't tune out if you don't have 17 Hats, but if you do have 17 Hats, this one is going to be like turbo boosted for you. Make sure to save this episode. I think there's a lot that you're going to want to implement. So let's talk about why a rebooking workflow. What is it? What am I going to talk about? Basically, I used to think of my workflow as the process from when someone reaches out to the time that I send a thank you note, right? Like that is the life cycle of a job. And once I complete the job and send the thank you note, it's done. And I've never really known what to do at that point. I typically just like archive the project and then hope they book me in the future. I add clients to my mailing list so that they are getting some constant communication from me, but the ball is almost entirely in their court. It's up to them to remember me. It's up to them to reach out. It's up to them to contact me and with enough time before their job, to see if I'm available. Like all of it is on them. And this poses a couple of problems, obviously. The first is that they might not remember. And the second is they might leave that job. So just because your contact leaves a job doesn't mean that that event isn't going to continue to happen. Probably someone new took over and they have no idea you exist. So keeping control of that contact is really, really important. So what I have done over the last year is kind of fine tune this follow-up sequence. So like I mentioned, this is much easier to do with a CRM, with a software that manages it for you. You can do this with a calendar and set up some fancy reminders for yourself, but 90% of the work is going to be done for you if you just set this up in 17 hats once and then just have it run on autopilot for all of your projects. Now, the other reason, this is totally made up. This is just based on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing. But I know a lot of people are really worried about a recession. They're worried about corporate cuts, about spending decreases. I haven't personally felt that in my area, but I know some of my friends are starting to notice budget cuts and they're starting to get a little bit worried about what people are able to spend on balloons. So here is where you have the advantage if you keep track of your contacts. If you have, let's say you had 50 clients last year. If you have 50 people that were happy with you last year and you are reaching out to them to rebook again, the likelihood of you surviving a recession and your business doing really well is much higher than the businesses who have no one to contact, no one to market to, no one to, try to sell to directly. They're just hoping people find them. I just think you're in a much better spot if you're essentially on offense, if you have a game plan in place to proactively go after those jobs instead of scrambling when all of a sudden the jobs just aren't coming to you. And like I mentioned in the intro, I am to the point now where I would probably estimate that 2/3 of my inquiries are repeat bookings. And that was never the case before. And it's not repeat bookings in the sense that people are reaching out to me because I've worked with them in the past. I mean, I get those too. But these are repeat bookings that I am securing. I am reaching out to them and they are agreeing. I am following up with them and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you for reminding me. So that is why this is really important. This is a huge chunk of money that you could be leaving on the table, or at the very least, you're leaving it kind of up in the air. You're leaving it up to the customer to find you instead of having a very easy, very simple process to remind them and reach out. And now another reason why this tactic is great is because it makes you look really good. It makes you look really professional. Other than dentists, there are so few people that follow up routinely and remind you that you have services needed or that they can provide a service for you. I talk about this all the time because it's this never-ending project, but I'm currently working with a contractor who is remodeling my basement, and I'm kind of at the end of my rope because the communication has just gotten so bad. At the beginning, it was good, but now I never know who's coming to my house, when they're going to be there, what they're doing. I feel like I'm managing the project, even though I'm paying someone else to do that. And I'm not super picky, but certain things like leaving big holes in the wall seem like red flags to me. Ooh, you should fix that. And the communication is just so bad everywhere. And I'm noticing it more and more. It is so hard to find a good service provider that if you are good at communicating and you are good at reaching out to your customers, you're already standing out from the competition. Not just other balloon people, but other vendors, other people that they work with. Everyone right now is kind of living in this ugh, I hate my job, I don't really care. And if we just come out guns blazing, because honestly, we have the best jobs in the world, and we excitedly approach our clients about rebooking with us, they're going to already be so glad that you've made their life easier because they probably forgot to book the balloons. They're not thinking about that event yet, and you are taking something off their plate. So this is an area where you can totally shine in your business. All right, let's take a quick break, and then I am going to get into really, really nitty-gritty, the 3-step process that I use. I'm going to tell you exactly what I say and how I do it right after the break. Are you ready to take your balloon business to the next level? Look no further than Having a Party Wholesale, your ultimate destination for all things balloons. At Having a Party Wholesale, they're not just a distributor, they're your partner in success. With the latest and greatest in balloon innovations, they're on the cutting edge of new products that will wow your clients. From top brands like Tuftex, Jamar, Anagram, Ellie's, Premium Conwin, and more, they've got the widest selection to fuel your creativity. Elevate your balloon business with premium quality balloons and accessories that'll make every event unforgettable. Join the successful league of professional balloon artists who shop at haveanaparty.com. All right, welcome back. Let's get into it. So, how am I going to set up this rebooking workflow? You get it. You know why you want it. You're like, just tell me how to do it. All right, let's do that now. So, after you complete a job, like I said, I used to send a thank you and be like, goodbye forever, and just kind of archive the project and hope that they reached out the next year. So now here's what I do. I complete the job. And in 17 Hats, that's called a project, right? There's like a file for the person, and that's their project. So before I archive that project, I make a new project. So I completely start a new project, and this is not going to be the event. The project itself is going to be the follow-up. So that's the part that can be kind of confusing. If I do a high school prom, I'm not going to make a new project called prom. I'm going to make a new project called follow-up for the high school prom. So that I know when it comes on my calendar, I know that's not a job, because then I freak out like, wait, what's this prom that I know nothing about? No. This is just a to-do that I need to take action on. The project itself is the follow-up process. So I also put that on a different calendar so that I don't see it on my Google Calendar and think, well, shoot, why is there a prom on a Tuesday in the middle of March? This isn't making sense. No. I simply see that, on my to-do calendar, I need to activate that workflow to follow up about that prom. I'm going to start that process in March. Now, after I make that new project, I can safely archive the old project because now those people are on my radar. If I don't see it, I don't remember it. I don't know it exists. So it's really important for me to not just like put people into an archive or the trash or like delete their information. I need to see them in front of me. And that's something that I love about 17 Hats, that I can like see all of my little projects lined up like a little filing cabinet in chronological order. So now I have the new project made, and I'm going to activate the follow-up workflow. So this is a workflow that I made one time. It has a few steps. It's very simple, and I'm going to activate that workflow. So it's ready to go. New project for the prom, new workflow specifically geared towards following up about their next event. And then the last step is that I'm going to schedule that project 6 months from now, which means I'm basically going to reach out 6 months before their next event. So that way I can sleep at night, right? Peace of mind. This project isn't gone. I don't have to remember it. I don't have to keep track of anything. I just know that 6 months from now, I'm going to see a reminder that I have a project called Prom Follow-Up, and I already have a few tasks ready for me to go in their little folder, and I'm going to start working through that workflow. Okay? Let me go through that again in case you didn't get the details here. Number one, I'm going to finish the job, right? I'm going to do the job. And then instead of getting rid of it, clearing it off my plate, I'm going to make a new project. And that project is going to be the follow-up for the prom. Let's stick with prom. Okay, step 2 is to activate the workflow. I'm going to talk about the workflow in a little bit, what's included. Step 3 is going to be scheduling that to do on my calendar 6 months from now. Gives me a nice long time to reach out and figure out if I'm going to work with them again. That's it. Really simple. At that point, you can archive the project. The first one, like the prom I already did, I can safely archive that and know that I still have it on my radar for the following year. And then I'm not going to forget that they exist, because we've all done that, right? We look at our calendar and it's like, oh my gosh, like I did that huge corporate party last year. What happened to it? Did they use someone else? Did I forget? Did they not do it? Like, holy cow, and now it's too late. So we want to avoid that. It's too late. We want to avoid that. Now, why do I do it 6 months in advance? I used to do 9 months. 3 months to plan an event isn't actually a lot of time, right? Sometimes it takes you like a month or two to even figure out if they want to work with you. Sometimes they're ahead of you at 3 months and they've already spent their entire budget. So 6 months is too early. Like most people aren't going to be planning an event 6 months out, but at least it gets them thinking about you. It's a reminder that you exist. The other thing I've mentioned a lot is that there's turnover. In these event positions, there's turnover. Or even let's talk about the prom, right? That advisor changes like frequently, right? Like maybe the prom advisor had a baby and she's off this semester. Maybe she quit. She's not a teacher anymore. Maybe the advisor position rotates and it's a totally new person. So you want to give yourself enough runway to figure out if your contact is still going to be your contact. Sometimes that can take a month to figure out even the right person to talk to. A lot of times you get an away message saying this person no longer works there and, reach out to this person instead. So the 6-month time frame is good. It gets you ahead of budgeting, it gets you ahead of planning, and it gets you ahead of contacts moving around to the point where you have to kind of scramble and find a new person. And that's always a really easy introduction when you can say, hey, I used to work with so-and-so on this event. We've always done a balloon arch. Is this something you're interested in again this year? Most of the time they're like, oh my gosh, thank you. I had no idea. I just started. We are just starting to talk about this event, but I will definitely bring this up to the committee. Now with turnover, there's not always a guarantee. I would say most of the jobs that do not rebook, it's because of turnover, right? There's new people, they have new ideas, they want it to be their own. That has nothing to do with us. That's just them. But a lot of times they're like, I didn't even know there was supposed to be a balloon arch at the prom. Like, oh my gosh, sure, whatever. And if you can help guide them through that process, again, like, don't be my contractors, right? Don't make them ask the questions, just answer them all for them. And they're already going to be like, great, I don't even care about this prom. I'm getting paid like no money to deal with this. Just make it happen. Can you tell I used to be a former teacher? All right, let's take one more break. And then I'm going to talk about that workflow. So I mentioned in the 3-step process, right? You're going to make the new project, you're going to activate the new workflow, and then you're going to schedule it on your calendar 6 months from now. The biggest part of that is activating the workflow. Like, what do I say? What does the email say when I reach out? How do I follow up? Like, what does that look like and how does that work within a CRM? I'm going to tell you all about that right after the break.
Are you driving to do an installation right now? Have you ever had that experience of while you're driving, your phone rings and it's a great potential customer, but you're on the middle of the freeway and you can't take the details of the order down, and so you're really worried you're going to forget everything? Well, there's a really great way to solve this. It's by having an answering service. If you'd like to learn more solutions to the balloon decor business problems you face, then come on over to balloonsuite.com. We have a blog full of expertise, and we offer packages that help you get your sales on track to reach your goals. Come on over, learn more, and you can subscribe at balloonsuite.com.
All right, welcome back. So we have activated our workflow. This is something you're going to have to make one time, and then it will exist for you in 17 Hats. And a workflow in 17 Hats is basically a to-do list for you, but the to-do list can hold information, which is super cool. So if my first item on my to-do list is to send an email confirming if they're interested, which it is, I only have to write that email one time, and then it's like saved in my to-do list. So when I go in there, all I have to do is click send. I'm not like drafting an email. I'm not doing anything fancy here. I'm just going in and saying, okay, it's been 6 months. It's time to reach out to this prom committee and see if they want balloons again. So my first email, the subject line is balloons, ? And then it's one sentence and it says, hey, so-and-so, I had so much fun decorating your prom last year. Just wanted to check in and see if you would be needing balloons again this year. That is it. Make it easy. Make it easy for them. Do not have a subject line that's like, let us help you celebrate your upcoming event. Boop, delete. I don't care. That is too much for me. Like, don't make it sound like a sales email. Don't make it sound like you're cold pitching them. Like, they're your client. You know them. They know you. Be casual and make it easy. I have found that the most effective subject line is balloons. Like, they'll open it because they're like, what is that? So balloons, ? One sentence, that's it. That is the first step of my workflow. And then in 17 Hats, it's cool. When you send that, like, puts a little line through it. It says, you've completed that and what day you've done it. And then it kind of cues up your next step. Now, my next steps are not actually like actions. They're just like little check boxes so that I can keep track of where I am in the process. Now, the next checkbox is, have they confirmed their interest? A lot of times they reach out and say, yeah, we're totally interested. We haven't picked a theme yet. We're just starting to meet. We'll be in touch. So that's okay. But the better response is, yes, we are interested. Our date is going to be May 3rd. Please put us on your calendar. We will be in touch soon, because then you're cooking, okay? You have verbal commitment. You have a date. That's important, right? Like you have a date. So what I do at this point is I change the date of the project. I've basically left the follow-up workflow, and now I have a date on the calendar. So I'm going to go in, I'm just going to change the project date and the name, and this is no longer the follow-up sequence. This is a date that I am putting on my calendar. I still am going to need to follow up and make sure that they order and stuff like that. But in our industry, dates are really, really important. So I'm going to change the date of the project, and now boom, I no longer have a follow-up project. I have an actual event project, and I'm just going to kind of transition into my next workflow. So if you lost me on that, let me explain. Let's go to the other option where they don't confirm. Let's work through this whole workflow, and then I'm going to get into kind of the transition that I just talked about. So there are a lot of times where you reach out and you say balloons ? And you get no response. So then my next item is to follow up again. And to follow up again. And eventually, sometimes you don't get it, right? And then I archive and I move on. If you're really aggressive or ambitious, you can just delay this project for another year. Maybe you're going to reach out the same exact way, same exact person next year. Like, hey, we helped you celebrate your prom 2 years ago. Are you interested in balloons? I typically don't do that. If they don't rebook the next year, I typically just archive and let them go. What is it? Like, if you love them, set them free. They'll come back or something like that. I just feel like there's enough business for me. I don't need to go after jobs that I did 3 years ago. So at that point, I would archive. They would be gone. Still on my email list, but not really on my project page. What usually happens is a combination of option 1 and option 2, right? They respond, or you get kind of a response, but it's a different person. And you have to kind of start figuring out what you're going to do. Sometimes they're like, I no longer am on this committee, contact this person instead. So that's great, because now you're going to change the email and you're going to send it to someone else and hopefully get them to commit. But ideally, we're sending a sequence of reminders until they either say no or they say yes. And this is where you start feeling annoying, but this is where the money is. Following up 2, 3, 4 times, like, isn't that weird in any other field, right? Like, we all have those emails where we just follow up. And if they can't even say no, just keep emailing, right? Like, eventually they'll say no, or you'll realize they're not even there anymore, or they're not having their event. So follow up until you get that commitment. And then once you get the commitment, let's say they say yes, right? Yes, our prom is going to be this date. Then this project morphs into an actual event. It's no longer about following up. Now it's about getting them to commit to their event and book the decor and put the deposit. And if you work in 17 hats, that's just your regular workflow. Then you can activate your regular workflow that you use for booking a job. So these kind of all flow into each other, and it can be, you have a job and then it flows into the follow-up sequence. And then eventually you want that follow-up sequence to flow back into another job. And then you want that job to flow into a follow-up sequence. So these people, like your top clients, are really never leaving your project page. They're always just kind of there in some capacity. And that's when I started realizing I'm working with like the same handful of people over and over and over again. So I hope I'm making sense here, because this is really easy, and I don't want it to sound more complicated than it is, but I want to give you the specifics so you know exactly what to do. Let's take a quick break, and then I am going to wrap everything up. I'm just going to make it as simple as possible and put a little bow on this episode so that you can take action today and take advantage of all of this money that is waiting for you. It is so much easier to work with repeat clients than it is to onboard a new client. So hang tight, and then I'll have some final thoughts for you. Hey listeners, before we wrap up today's episode, let's talk about our fantastic sponsor, the Balloon Guild. Do you ever see amazing balloon decor online and wonder, how did they make that? The Balloon Guild is revolutionizing the industry by standardizing recipes SOPs, and offering unparalleled training. Their mission? To elevate balloon artists worldwide, ensuring efficiency, profitability, and unparalleled professionalism. For business owners and their teams, the Balloon Guild isn't just a resource, it's a game changer for growth and development. For me, it's been the ultimate shortcut in finally getting things out of my head and onto paper, so I'm not making things up on the fly, and so my team can work together to create consistent, fast decor. Visit their platform today at theballoonguild.com or by using the link in the show notes. New recipes and resources are released every month. Okay, let's wrap this one up. So, if you're overwhelmed, that's okay. I'm going to put this in the simplest terms possible. When you finish a job, don't think of it as being done until they rebook for the next year. Your workflow no longer ends at the thank you note. It is going to end when they confirm that they want you next year. So in order to do that, you need another step, right? That step I have found is easiest implemented when you create a new project called follow-up for that client, prom follow-up, and it has its own little set of steps. It's a mini little workflow. It consists of an email asking if they're interested, a couple of follow-up emails, and then ideally, you can check that box that confirms that they're interested. When they do that, you're just going to start a new project for their actual event and run it like you would any other project. If you are like, Sarah, I don't even know what a workflow is. I don't even use workflows. Okay, then this might be a little too much. Save this episode. And I would recommend you start with workflows. There are things that you are doing for every single job. You're probably sending the same availability email. You're probably asking the same questions. You're probably sending the confirmation email before you deliver, right? A workflow simply puts all of those tasks into a little to-do list for you right inside 17 Hats, and it saves it. So it makes it easy to repeat the same procedure over and over and over. So if you're not quite to the follow-up sequence yet, and you just need to figure out workflows, that would be a great challenge. Some of you might not even have 17 Hats. Now is the time to get it because we're at the beginning of the year. This is a really good time to implement a new strategy that might seem overwhelming, but oh my gosh, it just has run my business for the last probably 7 years. So if your head is spinning, you're like, I don't even know, like, what are you even talking about? Everything I talked about in this episode is maybe a matter of 3 clicks of the mouse at this point for me. So I do all of this pretty much in my sleep. You could even set this up on autopilot so that initial email sends out on its own 6 months from now. Like, there are so many capabilities within 17 Hats. I absolutely love it. I adore them as a company. The people are really nice and really responsive, and I just can't say enough good stuff about it. So there is a link. If you don't have 17 Hats, there's a link to get it at a deep discount in the show notes. And if you do have 17 Hats, this is one very cool way to effectively get those repeat bookings. So I hope this has helped. It was a game changer for me, and I've only been doing it for about a year now, but it's definitely given me peace of mind and knowing that I'm not going to let good jobs slip through the cracks. And it also goes probably without saying that not every job is going to be a rebooking, right? Like, you're not going to do a wedding more than once. Like, those people aren't going to rebook you. So you don't even have to do this for every customer. It's just those good jobs that are probably going to happen every single year. Thank you for listening. I hope this is helpful. If you have to go back and re-listen, or if you have any questions, please let me know. I'd be happy to help. And I will see you next week in another episode. Thanks for listening. As usual, I tried to keep it bright and light. Our presenting sponsor is 17 Hats, the CRM I use to cut the chaos and manage my entire balloon business. From the lead capture form on my website to workflows and email templates, invoicing and grab-and-go garland automated bookings, it's all powered by 17 Hats, the best customer relationship management system for balloon businesses. There's even a 50% off coupon code waiting for you in the show notes wherever you're listening. I'll see you next week in another episode.